On recording. Welcome everyone. I'm Brother Doug. I got my sister Marissa here, our sister Sadie, our sister Lisa, our brother Dennis. We are the Wakened by Yahuwah fellowship group in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahusha Messiah. We are going to be doing a continuation today of last Shabbat. We're going to be doing the part 2 of the Tanak, Old Testament, and Apocrypha. Foreshadows Yahusha as the true Messiah to die for our sins. I don't know why the H there got erased. That's a little weird. All right, there we go. Here we go. So we did the first half of this study last time where we did cross-references from Psalms, Jeremiah, the prophets, and then we got to the extra biblical stuff, the ascension of Isaiah, which mentions Yahusha by name. Which, of course, Jews would say that the ascension of Isaiah, the ascension of Isaiah would be Apocrypha from AD time period because they don't want to accept him as the Messiah. Apocalypse of Abraham, which is supposed to be an ancient Jewish apocryphal writing, talks about Yahusha being kissed by Satan on the cheek, which we know later on in the book of Matthew. And the other Besorah accounts, the other Glad Tidings accounts, mentions that was fulfilled. So here we go. I'm going to start us off with Isaiah 55, verse 1, and Revelations 22:17, just to start us off here. Then I'll start assigning certain scriptures to our brothers and sisters here. So Isaiah 55:17. We are going to be doing that here. I'll be using the Septuagint since this was the actual Old Testament in Messiah's day. Let me just make sure that's the right cross-reference. Oh, Isaiah 55:1. My bad. Okay, so Isaiah 55:1, which says in the Breton Septuagint, "You that thirst, go to the water, and all that have no money, go and buy and eat and drink wine and fat without money or price." Okay, so this is the Father speaking here. Now we're going to go into Revelations, where this is being fulfilled, where it's being fulfilled. And let's see here, Revelations 22:17. Okay, Revelations 22:17, which says, okay, we got, you know what? I might read from the Etheridge. Let's see if there's any difference here. Let's see here. "And the Spirit and the bride say," so the Spirit, meaning Yahuwah, the Ruach, set apart Spirit, Yahuwah, "and the bride say, Come, and he who hears shall say, Come, and who thirsts may come, and he who wills to take the waters of life freely." Okay, Sister Sandra's just in here. So, all right, here we go. So we're going to continue here, and I'm going to assign some scriptures here while we're doing this. Let's see here. If I remember from, let's see here, I think we're going to go with, let me see here. Do I have my...
I'm just going to watch Jesus of Nazareth to get my mind off all of this stuff.
All right, so we have 4th Ezra next, 13:10. And I think since I don't know if my brothers and sisters have 4th Ezra, let me know if you do. I got a message here. Shabbat Shalom, Sandra. So we're continuing the study we did last week. I'm just going to go to 4th Ezra of the regular Apocrypha. This is pretty easy to find for the most part. I mean, if you have a 1611 King James, you would probably have this book, or any normal Apocrypha. Let me see here. I have it in one of my other Catholic Bibles. I might have to go into there because I really want to have this offhand for the study here. Let me see. I think it's in PDF books. It should be in. I don't know why. Yeah, sure. Tanak, Septuagint. Okay, false description. All right, hold on a second, guys. I'm gonna get. Sorry about that. I could have swore I had an electronic version of that in front of me. Hold on a second. I know I have it over here somewhere. I was just reading my Catholic Bible the other day. Here we go. All right, so you guys can get this. It's easy to find this after Shabbat. I would recommend, especially if you want to look into the Apocrypha that talks about Yahusha, I would recommend getting this Catholic Bible, the RSV, with Deuterocanonical and Apocryphal books. It's just a basic little cheap paperback Catholic Bible that has books that we don't have. And just a little history lesson. Books like 4th Ezra were considered canon according to King James and other older translators. Just later on, the Protestants decided to remove it for they didn't even really have that good of a reason. So let's see here. We're going to go to 4th Ezra's, also known as 2nd Esdras in the Septuagint canon. King James canon, they call it 2nd Esdras. So we're going to go there real quick. And let's see here. So let me just see what page. Page 1070, they have it in here.
Sandra gave us the tip where we can get it at. All of us to go online and we can read along with you.
Okay. Yeah, let me just see here. While I'm trying to find that, I'll see. There should be a link. I think Sandra might have sent something, but I know of other websites that you can find it. You can access the King James Apocrypha. I think one's called scripturaltruths.com. So let me just open that up. If she hasn't sent anything yet. Yeah, kjvonline.com. Yeah, that's another good one. So let me just go to that real quick. I forgot about that website. All right, so let's go to my Chrome browser here. All right, let's go to stupid thing. It doesn't keep doing that. I hate that. It always does that for some reason. All right, come on, shared screen. Don't fail me now. All right, here we go. Go to scriptural truths, and this guy's like really big. He's a Christian guy, but he's really big on the Apocrypha. If I remember, yeah, this guy. So you got free PDFs. Go to free PDFs here, and then you got as you can see here, this is the whole Apocrypha here, all 15 or 16 books. I mean, I don't think the Set Apart Spirit Beaten, that's not a book, that's something else. Okay. All right, so 2nd Esdras, here we go. This is the book I'm talking about. So we're going to go, and I recommend this. If people really want to get their hands on a general Apocrypha, don't waste money on a Sefer. You can print these out, these Apocryphas out. They're open source. I would recommend that rather than wasting your money on a Sefer just to get extra books. Let's see here. So we need to get to chapter, I think it's 13 or 14, where it talks about Yahusha by name. All right. So, sorry about that, guys. I know it's kind of annoying with the noise of my mouse. I'm just trying to get there as quickly as possible. Okay. Let me just make sure what exactly is. So we're looking at 4th Ezra 13:10. All right. Okay, so 4th Ezra 13:10. We're going to get onto there right now. Yeah, so I'll give you guys the links to this stuff so you guys could, print it out for yourselves. You can download PDFs for free from here. All right, so here we go. Here we go. And I'll start at verse 9 for some context. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude, that came, he neither lifted up his hand nor held sword nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight. Yep, sounds familiar to me. Sounds like 2 Thessalonians to me. Okay, so I'm going to ask Sister Sadie if you could read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 8 to 9. And if you want, I can put the e-sword on the shared screen for you to read.
Yes, do that.
All right, so I'll give you the restored name King James is probably one of the easiest ones. All right, 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 8 to 9. Here you go.
Okay. 2 Thessalonians 2:8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom Yahusha shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Just scroll down. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lies and wonders.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all powers, signs, and lying wonders.
Yep.
He's the king of lies.
Yep, and we covered last time the ascension of Isaiah is where he gets that from, because Satan will cause fire to come down from heaven. He's going to do stuff like Elijah did, the anti-Messiah. I believe Paul was actually quoting from the ascension of Isaiah as another pseudepigrapha book that mentions Yahusha before he came, and what he would have to die for our sins. So I believe.
Doug,
Yeah.
I think you're reading 2nd Ezra, not 4 Ezra.
Oh yeah, it's the same book. They have two different names for it, kind of like how Sirach is also known as Ecclesiasticus. They have like different names for the same book. Esdras is the old name for it because that's what the King James and Septuagint actually called Ezra as Esdras. Like even the regular book of Ezra in the Septuagint is spelled Esdras. So it's the same book. It's just two different names. The modern apocryphas will have it as 4th Ezra, and the older apocryphas like the 1611 King James, the Geneva Bible will have it as Esdras. It's pretty much the same thing, just two different names. So let's see here. We got Psalms. I'll read Psalms chapter 2, 1-2 for everyone. And then we'll have someone read the Revelation 16, 3-4. So Psalms chapter 2 is another one where you see Yahusha mentioned way before he came, and talks about Yahuwah's Messiah. Okay, the reign of Yahuwah's anointed. They even have it on e-sword, a little header for the chapter. Okay, so the reign of Yahuwah's anointed. Wherefore did the heathen rage? Wow, that's interesting. Past tense. It's kind of interesting. And the nations imagined vain things. The kings of the earth stood up, and the rulers gathered themselves together against Yahuwah and against his Messiah, saying, let us break through their bonds and cast away their yoke from us. He that dwells in heaven shall laugh them to scorn. Yahuwah shall mock them. So this is basically what we're getting to in the day of Yahuwah. You're going to have the nations, the heathen, don't want to have Yahuwah's yoke on them anymore. They never did. these heathen. They never wanted his yoke upon them, even though his yoke is light, like Yahusha says. They're actually going to willfully fight the Creator, and we see that in Hollywood movies now. The Creator's always depicted as the evil one or as the villain. So it's kind of like conditioning, in my opinion, why they're doing that. So anyway, so Revelation 16, 3-4, I think I'll give to Sister Marissa if she could possibly read Revelation 16, 3-4.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And the second messenger poured out his bowl on the sea, and it became blood as of a dead one, and every living creature in the sea died. And the third messenger poured out his bowl on the rivers and fountains of water, and they became blood.
I must have messed up. I must have messed up when I was doing that cross reference, because that doesn't even. That's weird. I actually originally wanted to get the Gog and Magog thing. I don't know why.
Brother, that hit me like a ton of bricks, though, because that's yet to come, correct?
Oh yeah,
Oh, and
that's the
every
Bulls of Wrath.
creature-
That's the Bulls of Wrath. What Sister Melissa just read. Yeah.
Oh, how heartbreaking, because, every creature is going to die, but, maybe because it's been, tainted and poisoned by the radioactive sea monsters of human hands. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
maybe all the creatures will be, infected some way or somehow. So that's why he's going to wipe it out like he's always done when he has set warriors to go to different lands, take not one refuge, not one person, clean them all out. So maybe this is the same thing that he's doing to the sea to start it all over. Because, well, are we going to even have a sea? I guess this all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
No?
There's going to be a remnant that's after the day of his wrath. I believe there will be a remnant. For the millennial, you're going to have people in Zechariah 14 that are heathen, that are not even believers, that he's going to tell the nations of the earth that they're given an ultimatum to either go to Jerusalem and worship him at the Feast of Tabernacles or die. The Septuagint says. So there's going to be a remnant, not just of us, but a remnant of the heathen. He's going to save a small, minute amount of them. He's going to have mercy on them, and he's going to say, all right, well, here's your last chance. You can worship me, serve me and my son, at the Feast of Tabernacles, and go up to Jerusalem and worship me, or you're done. You're going to be like the rest that came up against, my people. The whole battle of Gog and Magog is pretty much like that. That's what happened. He's going to destroy a lot of those nations that came up against Jerusalem. And, there's going to be a remnant of those Gentiles, those heathen that are left over, the non-believers that are left over, that he gives them a second chance. But yeah. So let me see here. I wanted to just look real quick because I know there's a cross-reference for that Psalms too that talks about Gog and Magog. He gathered them together for the battle of the great day. And actually, this is after the millennial. I have to correct myself. This Gog and Magog battle, I think, is actually after the millennial. All right, here we go. Revelation 16:14. Okay, I got it off by a little bit. Okay. Yeah, okay. Revelation 16:14. They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for battle on the great day of Elohim Almighty. Actually, it should be, let me see here. I wonder if that's the case, if it's supposed to be Elohim Almighty or if it's supposed to be Yahuwah Almighty. Sometimes they put Theos where Kurios is supposed to be. Yeah. All right. Restored Name King James actually put YHWH there. Good. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yahuwah the Almighty. So that's how Psalms 2:1-2 is going to be fulfilled. You're going to have these deceiving spirits telling the heathen, "Oh, we don't want their yokes upon us anymore. We don't want to serve him. We don't want to serve the Messiah." They're gonna gather them from the four winds. I think. Let's see. Gog, Magog. Let me see if I can find that because that's another good one too that talks about this. On the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog. Of the earth. Let's see here. There we go. Revelations 28. And it says, and this is talking about, let's see, I think this is right after the millennial, I think. And it says, he will go out to deceive the nations called Gog and Magog, meaning the four corners of the earth. And in every corner of the earth, he will gather them together for battle, a mighty army, as numberless as the sand along the seashore.
Doug, is Gog and Magog Japhet or Ham?
Well, the people Gog and Magog, which the British, Great Britain actually has a parade for the people that are known as Gog and Magog, like every year, called the Lord Mayor Day Parade or whatever it's called. And they were, according to them, they were giants, and they came from Japheth's lineage. But there's also lands that are called Gog and Magog, so they had actual territories or countries that were named that too. So I think this prophecy is more or less not talking about the people; it's talking about the actual, probably the land, like that it's going to be at. And I think this is around. I think this is.
Is
I
that
think
Russia?
this. I don't know. I know a lot of traditional end times prophecy. People will say it's Russia. I don't know for sure. I would have to look up what Gog and Magog was, biblically speaking, where that would be today. I don't know. I'm not good on geography, so I would have to look that up for myself. But yeah, some people think it's Russia. I think Russia plays a part in end times prophecy because they're symbolized by a bear. And Daniel talks about that the bear had ribs in its mouth and it tore it to pieces. And it seems like Russia could be one of the four beast kingdoms that Daniel talks about. So it's very possible. But I don't know about the whole Gog Magog connection, whether that's Russia or not. I don't want to make an assumption. I would have to look that up for myself. But basically, this prophecy in Revelations 28, which can be cross-referenced with Psalms 2:1-2 about them going against Yahuwah and his Messiah. This is basically Satan is deceiving the whole world into battling the Creator, and he's. I think this would be right after he gets loosed out of the 1,000-year reign. He gets loosed out of the pit. Then he has a chance to deceive the nations one more time. And let me see here. I'm gonna just check that. But yeah, 1,000 years. Yep. I saw an angel come down from heaven having a key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand, and he laid hold on the dragon. We know who the dragon is. That old Nakash. The reason I say Nakash instead of serpent is because if you look at the Hebrew word in Genesis 3, it's actually Nakash, or shining one, not a snake. So that old Nakash, shining one, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till, it's important to keep it in context there, it says until the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, judgment was given to them. And I saw the beings of them that were beheaded. So this is talking about the martyrs here. For the witness of Yahusha and for the word of Yahuwah, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Messiah 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again, until the 1,000 years were finished. So this lets you know that basically the millennial is going to be right after the first resurrection. This lets you know the first resurrection is where you have the millennial right after it. And it's letting you know there's two resurrections. Baruch and set apart is he that has part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of Yahuwah and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. The defeat of Satan. So here we go. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and he shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog. So Gog and Magog, it's not referring to as people here. They're actually being referred to as nations. And to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So basically what Christianity calls today the battle of quote-unquote Armageddon, even though a lot of them get confused and they call the battle before this battle Armageddon because it was in Megiddo or whatever. So it's very confusing, but there's actually two battles of the end. You have one where the beast and false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire, which happens before this point in Revelation 19, and then you have this, where Satan is defeated and thrown into the lake of fire. So I know it can be confusing, but there's actually two last battles of the end. So there's actually two of them. So let me just fix this. So that's Revelations 16:14. You can find this that I just read from, and Revelations 28. So this is what I believe Psalms 2:1-2 was talking about. And here we go. Now we're going to get to the really fun part. Here is Proverbs chapter 30, verse 4. And I think, let's see, who hasn't read yet? We have Marissa. Brother Dennis, if you could possibly read, we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 30, verse 4.
Doug, can you put up the link to the ascension of Isaiah for Sandra?
Yeah, sure. Let me just do that real quick. Let's see here. Let me go to my browser. Yeah, you can. It's pretty easy to find it. I think where I first found it was called earlychristianwritings.com. Let's see here. Ascension, Isaiah. It's still in my history. Come on. There we go. Here we go. There we go. All right, so copy and paste this link here. Yeah, anyone that wants a link to these extra biblical books, let me know. They're also very cheap on Amazon too. I got my little paperback for less than $10. Very cheap. But anyway, Brother Dennis, if you could read Proverbs chapter 30, verse 4. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Proverbs 30, verse 4. Who has gone up to the Shemayim, or heavens, and come down? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has bound the waters in a garment? Who established all the ends of Haaretz, or earth? What is his name? And what is his son's name, if you know? Good question.
What's interesting to me is that the Tanak says that Yahuwah is the one that ascended and descended, but yet we don't see that. We see the Son ascending and descending. And if you go to the book of Luke, it actually says that as he will ascend, as he has ascended from Bethany, which you can actually look up for yourself on Google. Bethany was actually on the Mount of Olives. It says, just as this Yahusha, oh, no, not Luke, it's Acts 1:11. That's right. Acts chapter 1, verse 11 lets you know, just as how he ascended, he will descend. So let's see here. Acts 1:11 says, which also you men of Galilee, why do you stand gazing up into heaven? This same Yahusha, so the Son, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. And so, to me, that actually partially fulfills Zechariah 14. in my opinion. Zechariah 14 says in verse 4 here, it says, and his feet shall stand in that day, referring to the day of Yahuwah's wrath, the day of Messiah's return, upon the mountain of olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the mountain of olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. So, according to the Brit Hadashah, that was partially, it's like a partially fulfilled thing because he ascended into heaven, returning to heaven from that location, and the angel says he's going to descend in the same like manner. So, meaning he's going to descend when he returns to the Mount of Olives, which is prophesied in the prophet of Jeremiah prophesied about that. So we're still.
Sandra's having some problems with her mic. She says she's, I don't know. Is it on your end that maybe she's muted or something?
I think she had herself muted. She's had herself muted the whole time. I haven't touched.
Yeah, because she said that she's having some problems with her mic.
I can't even unmute her. Even I'm trying right now, and it won't unmute her. So it's from her side. It's gotta be from her side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let's see, I think River's also with us right now. Let's see here. Either that or it's Tobiah.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, River. All right, so we're continuing our study from last week. Let's see, I was at Zechariah 14:4, Acts 1:11, about who is the one that descended and ascended. And so now we're up to Isaiah 9:6, the mighty all, Prince of Peace. Okay, so I'll read that one. And I have a little bit of extra information here. Anyone's interested. Whoops, sorry. Oh, just trying to reach. So I'm going to read from you guys. This is the Aramaic Targum of the book of Isaiah. And there's a little excerpt about that specific cross-reference from Isaiah. So it says, and this is the Aramaic Targum version of Isaiah 9:6. It says, his name is called from eternity, the wonderful, the mighty all, who lived to eternity, the Messiah, whose peace shall be great upon us in his days. Oh, and I almost forgot about the first part of it. It actually also says, the prophet said to the house of David, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and he has taken the law upon himself to keep it. So, obviously, especially in the Targum version of that verse, you can get who it's talking about. I did not come to do away with the law. I came to fully proclaim it. So, he took the law upon himself. So here we go. That's Isaiah 9:6-7. And to link up with that, we have John 1:1 and Genesis 1:1. So John 1:1 says here, in the beginning was the Word was with Yahuwah, and the Word was Yahuwah. Then we also have from my Targums here on my Kindle app, I have Genesis 1:1 that perfectly blends with that, which says, in wisdom, Yahuwah created, meaning in the Son, in the Word, in Yahusha, Yahuwah created. So, and then we have also Proverbs 8, just to show you guys, because I know some people are kind of shaking their scratching their heads like, who is this person wisdom? How does he know that wisdom is Yahusha? If you go to Proverbs chapter 8, verses 22 all the way down, it says, and I'll use the Septuagint here, Yahuwah made me the beginning of his ways for his works, meaning Yahuwah made wisdom the tool. He used wisdom to create the creation. He established me before time was in the beginning, before he made the earth. Even before he made the depths, before the fountains of water came forth, before the mountains were settled, and before all hills, he begets me. Yahuwah made countries and inhabited tracts and the highest inhabited parts of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was present with him. And when he prepared his throne upon the winds, and when he strengthened the clouds above, and when he secured the fountains of the earth, when he strengthened the foundations of the earth, I was by him. The word was with him. Suiting myself to him, I was that wherein he took delight. Daily I rejoiced in his presence.
So he's talking about Yahushua. Is this Yahushua?
Yahusha is speaking, and he basically, the person wisdom in Proverbs 8 is letting you know he's Yahusha. The person wisdom is actually the one speaking and saying, I was by him. I was the beginning that he made me the beginning for all his works, meaning he used me to create the heavens and the earth, which goes perfectly with John 1:1, Genesis 1:1 in the Targum. So yeah, he was the tool. He is the outstretched arm of the Father that delivers us. So there's a lot of phrases that we kind of take for granted in the Tanak, in the Old Testament, that show us who was there the whole time. Yahusha was there the whole time. We just didn't realize it. We didn't realize, especially in my Christian upbringing, who the outstretched right arm is of the Father. And, my right hand, I shall deliver you with my powerful right hand. So, yep. Then we have, let me see here. See who hasn't, let's see here. I think most of us have read so far. Oh, I got two. How do I have two of Dennis? I think one of these people's not Dennis. I think one of these might be Tobiah or Shoshana. I just messed up.
I have this is Lisa. I have the Catholic Bible if you need me to read anything from Wisdom or Sirach.
Okay,
Or any of
cool.
these.
Yeah.
I love this Bible.
Yeah, let me see here, because I'll probably be calling on you once. Does your Catholic Bible have Second Esdras in it? Do you know offhand if it
No, it only has
Okay.
Ezra. It just says the book of Ezra.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. Wisdom, that's another good book, but that's more or less Solomon stuff. Yeah.
That's about the Ruach, right? Because he refers to wisdom as a she.
Yeah, I think that's more or less the translator putting their little Gnostic spin on it. If you look into wisdom in the scriptures and where it also says she in Proverbs 8 in the beginning of the chapter, but if you actually look into the original languages, it's supposed to be masculine, not feminine. So it's actually supposed to be he. They just translated it as she for whatever reason, and that confuses people. No, it's not. The set apart spirit is not wisdom. A lot of people get confused with the whole Sophia Gnostic nonsense that the set apart spirit is the female divine, and the female divine is not supported in the scripture. There's no female divine. The probably the reason they put she though is that you had Gnostics even back in Paul's day, and they worshipped the female mother goddess, and they believed in a female divine. So most likely it was them trying to mistranslate something on purpose, in my opinion.
Yeah, it worships Mary.
Yeah, the female divine is in other religions like Shekinah glory in Kabbalistic Judaism. and all that. So it's really supposed to be he, where it even says in the Book of Wisdom, it's probably talking about Yahusha. It's talking about he, Yahusha, wisdom, who is with Yahuwah, according to John 1:1, who is Yahuwah, who created the heavens and the earth. And so that's what it's really talking about, the book. If it's mentioning a person called Wisdom, that's probably, it wouldn't contradict Proverbs 8. So it's, and as far as I know, according to the history of that extra biblical book in the Catholic Bible, it was written by the same author as Proverbs. It was written by Solomon, the Book of Wisdom. So he's definitely not going to contradict himself. So the problem is when you get these English translators that are Gaia worshipers, and a lot of them, and they mistranslate a he to a she. It's very easy because in the Greek they use the same word can be translated as he or she, and the translator, basically the English translator, can choose either which way to translate it, because a lot of times in these Hebrew language and the Greek language, certain words can be masculine or feminine depending on how they would want to write it. So it's very easy for them to do that. So yeah, but anyway, just to explain that for the audience, for the viewers and listeners, it's wisdom's not a she, it's a he. It's complete. Especially when you look at the Targum of Genesis 1:1, that exposes the whole female divine. When you understand what Genesis 1:1 and John 1:1 are saying, completely exposes the female divine. So here we go. It says, I think, let's see, Brother Dennis, could you read Isaiah 7:14 for me? Let's see here. I don't think you're muted.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself.
Okay. I didn't realize. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Give you an easy version to read from here.
Let's see, Isaiah 14.
Yeah, Isaiah 7 verse 14.
Oh, 7 verse 14. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Isaiah 7 verse 14. Therefore, Yahuwah myself gives you a sign. Look, the maiden conceives and gives birth to a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel.
Yep. And I would just like to just give a little commentary on that, why certain Bibles like to translate is basically the reason they put maiden there, they actually put maiden there because there's been Jewish influence in certain translators, and they don't want them to put virgin there, even though the word for virgin is right there in the Greek Septuagint. It means virgin, not just a young woman. So a lot of the times, like the ISR, the Hallelujah Scriptures, they'll do that, and they'll put it maiden instead of what it really means. The primary definition of that word is virgin. So it actually should say that a virgin shall conceive, which we know was fulfilled in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. And so let's see here. Matthew 1:23 real quick. Let's see here. Matthew 1:23, which says, and I'm going to use the Restored Name King James here. Behold, a virgin shall be with child and shall bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is Elohim with us. Now, what's interesting, if you go to the Peshitta Aramaic New Testament, it actually says, which is translated, our Elohim is with us. So it's very interesting. So again, that goes back to the Isaiah 9:6 concept, the strong, mighty one. Okay, so let's see here. Micah, next one we got here, I think, is Micah chapter 5, verse 2.
Hey, Doug, Sandra had a question. She said, but the Hebrew word for wisdom is a feminine noun, or is it not? Or is Doug saying that was changed?
No, what I'm saying is if you go to the actual Septuagint, which predates our Masoretic text, it's a masculine primary noun, where it says she for wisdom in Proverbs 8. So what I'm saying is that where it says she, it's actually supposed to be he. And you can look it up for yourself. Let me see if I can put it on my eSword here. So I've looked
Can
it
you hear
up.
me now? I switched headsets.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. See here. Where does it say?
Okay, what verse specifically uses the pronoun she, so I can look it up too?
I see the first time it's used.
Which verse?
In Proverbs 8 verse 2 is the first time it's used. Let's see here.
8.
Me to be, to exist. Okay, hold on. No, that's actually not the one. Oh no, where is it? Hold on.
Oh,
yes.
I believe Tobiah left a chat and he put
Oh yeah. No, that's for what I just read. Yeah, that's agreeing about the virgin thing. Yeah. That's pretty obvious that they changed that for a bias in the ISR. The reason they changed that to maiden is because the Jews didn't want people believing that, because that means that Yahusha fulfilled a messianic prophecy, and they wouldn't want people to believe that. So yeah, the modern translations sometimes change the word for virgin into maiden when actually it's virgin. The King James.
Betula, with the Hebrew word betula there. And it actually, you can see in certain, if you look at that, I pasted in the chat the Strong's number. If you look at the places it occurs, it's clear that it says no man has known her. She is a betula. That's
Mm-hmm.
so it's clear that what that is a girl who's not been laid with, and they just chose to downplay it there and just not specify.
so is that referring to a maiden or is that referring to a virgin?
Virgin. Well, no man has known her. If no man has known her, she can't just be a regular young woman. Because a regular young woman, basically a young woman can be a virgin and can also have known a man. Maiden, technically in our modern English language, maiden, if you're just referring maiden to a young woman, that she doesn't have to be someone that doesn't know a man. That's what Tobiah's trying to show, that 38 times here it's translated as virgin, and only 7 times it's translated as young woman. And even the King James translators understand it's talking about a woman that hasn't been known, hasn't known a man. That's what
Okay, so in Revelation 14, verse 4, where it's talking about they are those who were not defiled with women, for they are maidens. That's talking about men, right?
Yeah.
That have not been defiled with a maiden. So the maiden would be someone that has not been.
No. It's saying women, when they're calling men virgins.
Yeah, I wouldn't correlate that verse in Revelation with what we're talking about, because it's
No, but it says here there are those who were not defiled with women, which are men.
You're looking at a English translator's words. That ain't the same words as what we're looking at in the original text. And to be defiled, as in like a woman who's menstruating, who gets her menstruation on you, that defiles you, and so on like that. So there's other ways to be defiled, but you're talking about defilement there, versus here we're just talking clearly about a woman that bears a child that has never been with a man.
Yeah, and that's what the prophecy was basically
No,
showing.
I understand that, but here it's talking about a man that's never been with a maiden.
Yeah, but we're
That's a whole other topic. And the maiden word isn't the same word there. The English translator translated it as maiden, but it's not the same word.
yeah,
Question.
Yeah. Yes.
With the Isaiah 7:14 verse, I'm very familiar with the modern rabbinic interpretation of that and saying, oh, that's talking about Isaiah's wife having a son, etc. How would you respond to that? Like, where in the text can you prove that that's not talking about his wife, it's talking about Mashiach?
Because I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure historically speaking, it would be easy to find Isaiah knowing his wife and having a child where she hasn't been known by him. The actual prophecy is talking about a woman that has not known a man whatsoever, not even once, giving birth. And that's in context, that's what the messianic prophecy is. Yeah, they like to think that Isaiah is the Messiah because they reject the fact that Yahusha is the Messiah, even though he's fulfilled like at the minimum 40 messianic prophecies when he was on the earth. So they would hold to Isaiah 53, referring to Isaiah, which I'm sorry, Isaiah was never pierced. His hands were never pierced for our transgressions. I mean, I could go on. There's so many instances that you could use in the Tanakh that's just not valid. That's it. That's a preconceived bias that they have because they don't want to accept that Yahusha is the true Messiah. They want to hold to that rabbinic thing where Isaiah is the Messiah, and or they'll say Israel. Some Jewish sects believe Israel, the person, Jacob is the Messiah or whatever, or David himself, which I kind of find funny because that goes back to the Pharisees. And Yahusha even said, "Oh, how can he be the son of David if David calls him his master?" So I mean, there's tons of scriptures actually in the Book of Psalms and other places in the Tanakh that expose that mindset that Isaiah was the one that was having a child by a virgin. If that's the case, then he wouldn't know his wife then, and that's I would need someone to show me biblical evidence that was the case, that he didn't know his wife when she was conceiving. But obviously it's future because Matthew 1:23 clearly fulfills it. Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna go to Micah chapter 5 verse 2 is another one. Oh yeah, go ahead, brother Tobiah. Let me see, can I?
So one good proof of this to get clarity is if you can pull up Genesis 24:16, you'll see that it speaks of a young woman who is a virgin. And the word there for young woman, this is talking about Rebecca. So it mentions two words here, young woman, which is the Hebrew word nara. And then she is a virgin, no man having known her. That's the word Betula. So it's very distinctive about what type of young woman this is. And so that word Betula is the word that Doug was referring to in this verse that he read, that this that bears the child is being a Betula.
Thank you. That's excellent. So basically right there in that verse, it's putting the two different words together to show that they mean the same thing.
No, it's saying
the maiden. Well,
yeah.
she's a maiden
Maiden's
because
not
no
in
man has known her.
No, maiden's not even there. It's only virgin.
Well, okay, so there's one mindset to look at the English that we have and make sense of what English we have.
Oh yeah, it does say Betula.
But the English that we have is all twisted up. So we have to take the English we have and wipe it off the desk and start with a clean desk and just examine the Hebrew that's originally there or the Greek that's originally there. And we'll see, like I'm saying, the word nara in Hebrew wise, I don't know what it is in the Greek there. We have to look it up. But Genesis 24:16 it shows that she's a young woman, but she's not just any young woman. She's a virgin young woman. But the translators, in their ignorance, we got translators that have never been called to keep the Sabbath. for hundreds of years. They've been doing our translations, and these are guys that believe in a lawless Messiah, who don't believe in keeping the Torah, who don't believe in keeping the Sabbath. They haven't been called. So they're essentially blind and deaf, is what the scripture says. And these are the guys we're taking our translations from. And they translate the word Nara and the word Betula interchangeably using the same English words, not making any distinction between the two words being any different. And they're supposed to be different.
Okay. And so we really have to look at the context every time, basically.
Yeah, I would, because you got to
Original
understand that.
languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, original languages, sis. That's the best way to do it. Look at the original
Right.
language,
And the
what that
context.
word means in the context, the original definition of the Greek or Hebrew words, which in this case they agree with one another. Parthenos, the Greek word, means a virgin, primary definition according to Thayer's Greek lexicon. And if you go to the Hebrew word of that same verse of Genesis 24:16, it's the same thing. Primary use is a virgin. So this is something that's easily provable with comparing the Greek and the Hebrew. So yeah, I mean that it's based upon rabbis wanting Christians to not believe in certain messianic prophecies being fulfilled, so to try to get them to deny the Messiah ultimately. And some Christians actually realize that, like there's Seventh-day Adventists like Walter Vaith that have done videos about that, debunking modern translators putting young women there. So yeah. So Micah 5:2, I think I'm going to read from my Septuagint because I like the Septuagint makes it a little bit better with making it more obvious that this is talking about Yahusha, who his days go all the way back to eternity, his pre-existence. Micah 5:2 here says, "And you, Bethlehem, house of Ephrathah, are few in number to be reckoned among the thousands of Yehuda, yet out of you shall one come forth to me to be a ruler of Yasher all, and his goings forth were from the beginning, even from eternity." So it's talking about the same person that in the Targum of Genesis 1:1, in wisdom, in Yahuwah created. It's the same person. So this Messiah was to come as the one from eternity that was always with the Father, and that was co-creator with the Father. And that's that's what I believe Micah 5:2 is actually referring to. It's referring to someone that lived from eternity, from the beginning, from Bereshith, you could even say in the Hebrew. So that's Micah 5:2. And then that's being fulfilled in Matthew 2:6 and John 7:42. So first, I think I'm going to go to Matthew 2:6, and sorry about that. I got a raspy voice today. Sorry about that. All right, Matthew 2:6. "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Yehuda, are by no means." Actually, I don't like how that Greek Orthodox Bible translated that. That's pretty bad. All right, here we go. Matthew 2:6. "And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Yehuda, are not least among the prince of Yehuda, for out of you shall come a governor that shall rule my people, Yasher all." So that's Matthew 2:6. And it's also being fulfilled in another place in the New Testament, John 7:42. Let me see here. We got John 7:42. Sorry about that. Man, what's wrong with my throat today? All right. Okay, here we go.
It
John
better not be New Jersey.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, sis. I'm just glad I'm inside my home and not out there where I would be really exposed to it. All right, so let's see here. John 7:42. "Has not the scripture said that the Messiah comes of the seed of David out of the town of Bethlehem where David was?" And actually that reminds me of another Tanak scripture that we really don't get in the Masoretic text of our Bibles today is Genesis 49:11, which lets you know he was to come from David's seed, more specifically Judah's loins. Okay. Genesis 49:11 in the Septuagint, which is probably Genesis 49:10 in your Old Testaments that you have in your Bibles from the Masoretic text. Let's see here. So Genesis 49 verse 11 says, oh no, it is verse 10, my bad. A ruler shall not fail from Yehuda, nor a prince from his loins, until there come the things stored up for him, and he is the expectation of nations. And the Masoretic text vaguely states it as he is until Shiloh comes. Don't really get it from the Masoretic text. So this is being fulfilled in John chapter 11, verse 52, where I think it was one of the Pharisees or Sadducees who was like a high priest mentioned that Yahusha would be dying, not just for Yasharel, but for other nations, for other ethnoses. Let's see here. Here you go. John 11:52 says, and not for the nation only, meaning not for Yasharal only, but to gather together in one the children of Elohim, or the children of Yahuwah, who were scattered abroad. So that goes back into expectation of the nations, plural.
Four corners, right?
Yeah, you know, like where it says in Revelations, every nation of every tongue would worship Yahuwah and all that. And when the sea of glass happens and all that, so that's kind of like another one where it's showing it's not just natural born. It's talking about people that were born of other ethnicities. Because the Greek word for nations a lot of the times is actually ethnos. You can look it up for yourselves. It's not always talking about a country. It's talking about ethnicities. So any people that believe that you have to be a natural-born Israelite to be saved, you might want to look up the original Greek. You might want to do some studying on that.
Doug, remember what we were talking about last night, saying that many of the Jews today are not really full 100% bloodline because of the
Japheth, because they come from Ashkenaz and
all the different because when the Egyptians came out with the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, there was such a mixture.
Mixed multitude.
There's no way that there is today one that is a full-blown person.
Full-blown Hebrew, you could say. The Hebrew lineage, physically speaking, has been mixed, especially when you go to the times of Solomon. We don't have time today to get into that, but if you go into what happened with Solomon and how many different strange wives he had, I mean that there's no way you have 110% biological Hebrew today. It would be impossible.
And prophetically speaking, Ephraim would become a multitude of nations. So everybody, I think the majority, just based on prophecy alone, the majority of people on the earth are probably connected with Ephraim. Everywhere Israel has gone, they've always mixed in with the people that they settled with.
Ephraim was the northern house, and I believe that that's where, in my opinion, that's where the wild branches are actually grafted into, is Ephraim, the northern house of Yasharal. The people that are like me, that are like Roman-born, European-born, that definitely have no trace, most likely, of any type of Hebrew blood. I'm like completely 100% probably Goyim as far as genetically speaking. I think I'm probably, this is more speculation, but I believe I'm going to be grafted into Ephraim, like Paul says in Romans 11. So that's what I believe. You have two houses that are going to be connected as the 12 tribes. You have the house of Judah, house of Yehuda, which consists of some Levites, Benjamites, and of Yehuda, the house, the actual tribe Yehuda. And then you have the rest of the 10 are the northern house that are mixed among the nations, but also you have wild branches that are grafted in. And so let me see here. The next one I want to read is Genesis 3:15, the first prophecy in Scripture. Very first prophecy that you'll see in the Scripture as far as the canon goes. It says, and Yahuwah Elohim said to the Nakash, because you have done this, you are cursed above all the cattle and all the brutes of the earth. On your breast you shall go, your belly shall you go, and you shall eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. Now, so there's two seeds, even you could even say physically speaking, in my opinion. When you look at the giants and what the Watchers did in Genesis 6, I believe Satan was trying to get his own seed. He's trying to, have hybrids in this seed battle. And so Genesis 3:16 is the beginning of the seed war, physically and spiritually speaking. So you have the seed of Messiah, which we belong to, versus the seed of the serpent, the seed of the Nakash, Satan, that we battle against, spiritually speaking. And physically speaking, you're probably going to see a rise of the physical seed of the serpent rising again, with the giants coming back and all that. So let's see here. It's actually been partially fulfilled to this point, because even if you think about it, David killed Goliath. He chopped off his head, crushed the head of the serpent. So even partially speaking, there was a foreshadowing with David and Goliath. And then also you have Revelations. I have here Revelations 19:20 and Revelations 20:10. So Revelations 19:20. Okay, Revelations 19:20 says, let's go down to here. It says, and the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. The two were thrown alive in the lake of fire burning with sulfur. So I believe that is part of the prophecy, because obviously the beast is he's kind of like the son of Satan. He's kind of like, the beast is the antithesis of Yahusha. Yahusha is the son of the Almighty. The beast is the son of Satan, in a way. Whether physically, spiritually speaking, however you look at it, he's like the son of Satan. Then we have Revelations 20:10 here. Okay. Revelations 20:10, which says, let's see here. And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And if you actually look for forever and ever, what's another interesting thing? It's kind of a little off topic, but if you actually look at that Greek word forever and ever, it's not really talking about eternity to eternity. This whole, eternal torture goes back to Greek mythology. It's actually talking about an aeon in the Greek language, which just means like for a long period of time. Doesn't mean like eternity to eternity necessarily. So a lot of people like to use that to say, people that go into the lake of fire are going to be tortured forever, or they're going to be, constantly being tortured instead of dying, which the lake of fire is the second death. So you can't be tortured forever. So, I mean, just by association, you can't be tortured forever in the lake of fire. But anyway, let's see here. Let's see here. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything really important. Yeah, let me go back up here, because there's a lot of important ones that we didn't get to yet. Like 4th Ezra has a bunch in here. You got chapter 7, 28 to 29. Okay, so we're going to go to 4th Ezra here, which I had opened up. I just got to see where I have it here. What what browser did I have it in at first? I had the early Christian writings, yada, 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 yada. Let me just see here. I know I had it in one of these browsers here. Okay. Here we go. There we go. I had that. It might have been, no, it's not in there either. It's weird. All right, I might have to reopen it. Unless I had it. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. All right, here we go. Now it's showing. Okay. Let me go back to there, go back to here. Okay, so now we're going to go up here to chapter 7, verse 28. Okay, which says, and this is 4th Ezra. Okay, chapter 7, verse 28 here. For my son, Yahusha, shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. After these years shall my son Messiah die, and all men that have life. So again, to be honest, this is a BC apocryphal book. There's no way that a Christian was writing this book. It's impossible. So the Jewish stance would be that somehow this is an AD book. It's impossible. This book preceded the New Testament by thousands of years. So this is referring to Yahusha the Messiah as the son of Yahuwah, and that he would die for us. Yep.
That's exactly the question I've been wondering about, when these books were written. Like, what are the oldest manuscripts they have? Did you actually see the evidence of that? Because I wondered the same thing. Oh, are they going to say this was written after the fact by Christians?
Well, according to most scholars, they agree. Even Jewish scholars would have to agree. What we know as the Apocrypha today, that was in the 1611 King James, all of that is Old Testament literature. None of that would have been written when Yahusha was on the earth. Like, this stuff would have been, even at the later dates that they dated, it's way before Yahusha even was born of Miriam on earth. So what they try to do, though, is they try to date the other books I showed you guys, like Ascension of Isaiah and all that. They've dated those as supposedly Christian writings, like early 1st century AD. But even Jewish people cannot claim that books like 4th Ezra was written in AD time period. Like the whole 15 books of the normal Apocrypha you have in your Bibles, that's all Old Testament literature. Like Tobit and all that, those are all BC literature. And as far as I know, the Apocalypse of Abraham, the only reason they don't accept it as BC literature is because what they say about Yahusha being kissed on the cheek, because it mentions him. So that's why they put it for AD literature. Other than that, some people even consider it as an ancient Jewish writing, the Apocalypse of Abraham. So the only reason they would have that as AD is because they have a bias. They don't want to believe that Yahusha was mentioned as the Messiah by name in certain of these books. But 4th Ezra, they can't make that case. 2nd Esdras was clearly Old Testament BC literature. They can't claim that. They can claim it maybe for Apocalypse of Abraham, and I can agree to disagree with them on that, and these pseudepigraphal books that are not in the Apocrypha. But as far as the Old Testament Apocrypha we have in our Bibles, even the later dates are BC. So, I mean, you can't, there's no way to refute that. 4th Ezra, for example. And the Book of Enoch, which we're going to get to here. Book of Enoch clearly is a BC literature, clearly. Most of the people that found it in the Qumran caves dated it back way early BC time period. So there is archaeological evidence for some of these extra biblical texts being way before the New Testament was written. The Apocalypse of Abraham, I don't have proof. I don't know when it was written. Scholars themselves dispute on when it was written, and certain books like Apocalypse of Abraham and Ascension of Isaiah. So those two books, they can dispute it, but they can't dispute 4th Ezra and stuff like that. They can't dispute the actual Apocrypha that was in earlier Bibles that, by the way, the Jews had no reason of taking them out. It was actually the Protestants, for whatever stupid reason. They decided to take them out. I don't know why, but anyway, so I'm going to go now to Ezra chapter 12, verse 31. Okay, so let's go back to that. Let's see here. Trying to see where it's weird. Okay, I see what happened there. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why it does that. Here we go. All right, so we're going to go to chapter 12 now, verse 31. So there's a lot of these we have to get to from 2nd Esdras. And I'm reading it from the 1611 King James Apocrypha on PDF file right now. So anyone that's interested in looking up this book, I put the link in the chat here, but I'm also going to put the link on the video when we upload the video. So anyone can download this for free. So here we go here. See here. Sorry about that. It's taking a little while here. Okay, here we go. Chapter 12, verse 31. Let's see here. I think I messed up. I should have put that there. I don't know why I don't know why I put that there. Why? No, not 12:31. I don't know why. Let's see here. No. Nope, my bad about that. That has nothing, it doesn't mention Yahusha in that part, so let me just edit that out. I think there's a part, though, in chapter 13, 12 to 32, so we'll just jump to chapter 13, verses 12 to 32 here. And let's see here. And, this is the anointed. Remember how in Psalms chapter 2, verses 1 to 2, how do the heathen rage and they imagine vain things to make war with Yahuwah and his anointed, his Messiah? All right, so keep that in mind. This is the anointed, which the highest, and the highest is actually a title for Yahuwah in the Greek New Testament. You'll sometimes see that. Has kept for them and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove them and shall upbraid them with their cruelty. So again, this is talking about Yahusha, the anointed. Okay, so that was 13, verse 12, and we're going to continue all the way down to verse 32. Oh, whoops, my bad. I was supposed to go. Oh, my bad. Wrong chapter, that's why. That's why I got confused. All right, 13 verses 12 to 32. Afterward, I saw the same man coming down from the mountain and called unto him another peaceable multitude. And there came much people unto him, where some were glad, some were sorry, and some of them were bound, and others some brought of them that were offered. Then was I sick through great fear, and I awakened and said, You have showed your servant these wonders from the beginning, and have counted me worthy that you should receive my prayer. Show me now yet the interpretation of this dream, for as I conceive in my understanding, woe unto them that shall be left in those days, and much more woe unto them that are not left behind. Pre-tribbers might want to read this book. Woe to them that are not left behind. Yep, might want to read this book. For they that were not left were in heaviness. Now understand I things that are laid up in the latter days, which shall happen unto them, to those that are left behind. Wherefore are they come into great perils and many necessities, like as these dreams declare, yet it is easier for him that is in danger to come into these things that to pass away as a cloud of the world and not to see the things that happened in the last day. And he answered me and said, the interpretation of the vision shall I show you, and I will open unto you the thing that you have required, whereas you have spoken of them that are left behind. This is the interpretation. He that shall endure, where have we seen that before? The peril in that them himself. They that be fallen into danger are such as have works and belief toward the Almighty. Revelations 14:12, anyone? Know this, therefore, that they which be left behind are more Baruch than they that be dead. This is the meaning of the vision. Whereas you saw a man coming up from the midst of the sea, the same is he whom Elohim, the highest, has kept a great season, which by his own self shall deliver his creature, and he shall order them that are left behind. And whereas you saw, and out of his mouth there came as a blast of wind and fire and storm, that he held neither sword nor any instrument of war, but that the rushing in of him destroyed the whole multitude that came to subdue him. This is the interpretation. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth. And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth, and one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, the signs shall happen which I showed you before, and then shall my son be declared, whom you saw as a man ascending. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another. So if we just look at the face value of this is a BC book, mind you, that is talking about the son of Yahuwah ascending, which you can get in Proverbs 30, verse 4. You can get in Zechariah 14. All BC literature is talking about the son of Yahuwah ascending and descending. Okay, and it's talking about those that are left behind. So don't be deceived by these. I know this is a whole nother topic about the pre-trib rapture, but don't be deceived about, oh, I don't want to be left behind. If you're left behind, that means you're not a tear. That's good. Okay. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Even the Apocrypha exposes the whole pre-trib catching away nonsense. So
I have a thought. This is what you've read. You have already, through the scriptures that have been read, this is a second and a third witness.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of witnesses here. You're going to see more and more. We're about to get into Enoch, who Enoch says is the cloud rider of Daniel 7. That's going to be the end of our study today. So people be patient. You're going to get to more apocryphal BC literature that talks about this person called the Son of Man before the New Testament was created.
Now, Doug, is this a Catholic book, this Ezra?
Well, what it is that the Catholics are the only ones to this day that keep the Old Testament Apocrypha in their Bibles. It's not that it's a Catholic book. It's that the Catholics are the only one that consider it canon somewhat. They consider the Apocrypha canon.
Yeah, because most Catholic Bibles have these books in them.
Mm-hmm. And the older Catholic,
not all of them, though.
And the older Catholic Bibles, like if you have a Catholic Bible called the Jerusalem Bible, which we have a brother, what's his name? We've shared videos of his before. Zachary Bauer. Zachary Bauer has a Jerusalem Bible like I do, and they actually consider the Old Testament Apocrypha part of the Old Testament. Like they don't separate it like the King James does. They don't put it in a separate category in their Bible. It's like within the Old Testament as you're reading through Genesis to Malachi. So according to the Catholics, they understood that these these apocryphal books were all BC literature. That's proof too, that they included within the Old Testament in their Bibles. Anyone that's done research on 4th Ezra would never think it's an AD time period book. And just like Enoch, they found it in the Qumran caves. It's BC. So those two books we know for a fact that we're using today are BC literature, and there's no way to disprove that, because even so-called, whatever you want to call them, theologians or whatever, have came across the same conclusion. And they just don't want to accept it because it doesn't agree with their theology, pretty much, why they don't want to accept Enoch and 4th Ezra and all that. But anyway. All right, so now we're going to go to verses 33 to 38 of the same chapter. Like I said, there is a lot about Yahusha in this book. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another, and an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as you see them willing to come and to overcome him by fighting. But he shall stand upon the top of Mount Sion, and Sion shall come and shall be showed to all men, being prepared and builded, like as you saw the hill graven without hands. Remember Daniel, the book of Daniel, the mountain that has been carved without hands destroys the statue of Nebuchadnezzar. This ties with the book of Daniel, this book. It actually gives you a missing piece of the prophecy. And this is my son, again, my son, shall rebuke the wicked in inventions of those nations. Oh, I wonder if that's referring to 5G. With which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest, and shall lay before them the evil thoughts and torments wherewith shall they begin to be tormented, and which are like unto a flame, and he shall destroy them without labor by the law, which is like unto me, and whereas you saw that he gathered. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now we're going to go to we're going to jump down to verses 49 to 52 here in this same chapter. Okay, so now when he destroys the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he shall defend his people that remain. That sounds like Ezekiel 38. Sounds like Zechariah 14 a little bit there. The nations that came up against Jerusalem, And then shall he show them great wonders. Then I said, O Yahuwah, that bears rule, show me this. Where have I seen the man coming up from the midst of the sea? And he said to me, like as you can neither seek nor know the things that are in the deep of the sea, even so can no man upon earth see my son, or those that be with him, but in the daytime. This is in the interpretation of the dream, which you saw, and whereby you only are here lightened, meaning, Ezra is the only one that knows about it, basically. He's the only one enlightened by the vision. Here we go. And then we got one last one from 4th Ezra. Then we're going to go to who is Melchizedek, king of Salem, and all that. So, all right, we're going to go to 4th Ezra 15:22. That's the last one I have from 4th Ezra, I believe. So chapter 15, verse 22. And let's see here. We got... Now, this is interesting. Remember how I was mentioning earlier, the right hand of the Father, his outstretched arm. Check this out. My right hand shall not spare the sinners, and my sword shall not cease over them that shed innocent blood upon the earth. So we who know who the right hand of the Father is, who sits at the right hand, that Yahusha is mentioned even in that verse, technically. So here we go. Now we're going to go to Genesis 14:18. Let's see who hasn't read yet. Anyone that wants to read, volunteer, feel free. I see Sister Josephine has just joined us, so anyone that wants to volunteer, feel free. I don't want to hoard all the scriptures, so feel free if you want to join in. All right, so the next one would be Genesis 14:18. All right. Okay. Here we go, Genesis 14:18. Now this is dealing with Melchizedek, king of Salem. And there's an interesting correlation with him and Yahusha. Okay, so it says here in the Brenton Septuagint I'm going to read from, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, which, by the way, Salem is the suffix to Jerusalem. Just something to think about. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth loaves and wine. What did Yahusha bring forth at the Last Supper, at the Passover meal? Think about it. And he was the priest of the Most High All, or Alua. Okay, so you have the priest of the Most High Alua, Elohim, giving loaves of bread and wine. And he's the king of Salem, or you could say Jerusalem. Interesting. So this, I believe, is another title for Yahusha most people don't realize, and why Yahusha says, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced. And I would like to find that real quick in the book of John chapter 8.
So you don't think that that was actually Shem, according to other writings that identify him as Shem?
Nah, I think because Yahusha's named as Melchizedek high priest in Psalms 110, forever it says, you are a Melchizedek priest forever. Reiterated by Paul in Hebrews 7:17. And the fact that Yahusha said Abraham saw his day, and for Abraham to meet Yahusha, it would have had to be before Yahusha came to earth. To me, I think if we just look at like the actual Genesis to Revelations, it makes more sense that Yahusha would be Melchizedek rather than Shem.
But it talks about the order of Melchizedek, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a priesthood by that name. Because there's other places where the word appeared to Abraham, not just in this one occasion.
Because I'll show you right here. This is the one I'm referring to, why I believe it's Melchizedek. That Yahusha and Melchizedek, king of Salem, are one and the same. Before Abraham was I am. Yahudim answered, and they were saying to him, are we not saying correctly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon in you? And how they're saying Yahusha is not even an Israelite. This is ridiculous. Yahusha said to them, a demon is not in me, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. But I am not seeking my esteem. There is one who seeks and judges. Timeless truth I tell you, whoever keeps my word shall never see death. The Yahudim were saying to him, now we know that a demon is in you. Abraham is dead, and the prophets, you are saying, whoever keeps my word shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died, and the prophets who have died? Who are you making yourself? Yahusha said to them, if I esteem, let's see here, it says, if I esteem myself, my esteem is nothing. If it is my Father who esteems me, he of whom you say he is our all, and you do not know him, but I know him. And if I had said I did not know him, I myself would have been a liar like you, but I do know him, and I keep his word. So verse 56 says, Abraham, your father, desired to see my day, and he saw it and rejoiced. Now, to me, that clearly shows, in my opinion, that he's Melchizedek, because Abraham meant he met Melchizedek, king of Salem, in Genesis 14:18. Yahusha institutes the bread and the wine at the last Passover the apostles had with him. He actually instituted the wine there to as a way to remember him. So the bread and the wine specifically point to his sacrifice, his blood, and his body. So to me, I believe that's the only way I could reconcile Abraham meeting Yahusha before he ever took on flesh, because Yahusha is obviously referring before he was born, of a virgin. He's talking about way back, that Abraham saw his day. So, and that's why they say, how do you know Abraham? You're not even 50 years old and all that. The next verse says, you are yet 50 years old and you have seen Abraham? And then verse 58 says, Yahusha said to them, timeless truth I speak to you. Before Abraham would exist, I am. And then the Aramaic doesn't just say I am, it actually says I am the living Elohim. So Yahusha quite blank told them who he was, and they didn't believe him. He quite blank told them, I was the one that Abraham met. I was the one in the burning bush. They didn't want to believe it. And so I believe that goes along with Psalms 110 verse 4, which says that you are a priest after the order of Melchizedek, and I have not seen anywhere else where any other human is a Melchizedek priest, named a Melchizedek priest. David wasn't even a Melchizedek priest. So this was completely foreshadowing Yahusha. And it says, Yahuwah swore it and will not relent. You are, singular, you, Yahusha, are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So after the order of Melchizedek, he is the Melchizedek high priest. And then you have Hebrews 7:17, which Paul pretty much quotes from this version, the Septuagint version of that. And he says in Hebrews 7:17, see here. For he does witness, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. And if you actually look at the word Melchizedek, the Hebrew word, I think my brother Dennis mentioned to me one time that if you look at it in the Hebrew, in English, it would be translated as King of Righteousness. Melchizedek, or Zadok, So again, which is kind of, it's very prophetic, because you're going to see later when we get to this other Yahusha in Zechariah 6, he's actually he's a son of a high priest too. So it's kind of interesting. Let me see here. We're up to, I have one more from 4th Ezra. Wow, I didn't realize how much I had. What the? It's been, wow. Okay, Zoom is really messing with me today. All right, here we go. All right, so we're going to go back up here, up to chapter 2, which I, Ezra, saw upon Mount Sion a great people whom I could not number. They all praised Yahuwah with songs. Okay, so this connects with, I believe it's in Revelations. Whoops, my bad. I was supposed to read all the way down to verse 48. That's my bad. All right. And in the midst of them was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest. And upon every one of their heads he set crowns and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel and said, Sir, or I guess master or mister, what are these things? He answered and said to me, these be that have put off the mortal clothing, talking about our human bodies, put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Elohim. Now are they crowned and receive palms. So this ties into the book of Revelations. And see here. You got Revelations 3:11. The reason I wanted to show this is because Yahusha is giving them crowns. Remember in Revelations, Yahusha says, "Let no man take your crown." So, again, here we go. Revelations 3:11. See, I am coming speedily. Hold what you have, that no one take your crown. Okay, Revelations 3:11. Then you have verse 14 here. I also wanted to show you guys in the Aramaic, because this also gives credence that Yahusha was the other part of the Elohim in Genesis 1, because it says here in Revelations 3:14, to the angel of the assembly of the Laodiceans write, thus says the eternal, the trustworthy and the true witness of the source of the creation of Elohim. Remember, Proverbs 8 says, he made me the beginning for his works of old. How it says that Yahuwah used this person wisdom to create mankind and the earth. So Revelations 3:14 in the Aramaic blends perfectly with Proverbs 8. So I just wanted to show that quick one there. To go back to the on topic with do not let no one take your crown, I also have Matthew 16:16 here for some reason. I want to see what that was about. Matthew 16:16, which says, Simon Kapha answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. Yep. So again, Kapha got the revelation from the Father, because later on Yahusha says, Baruch are you, Simon Bar Yonah, because flesh and blood has not revealed that to you. Basically meaning that this was a heavenly revelation, realizing that Yahusha was the Son of the Almighty, which you've seen in 4th Ezra BC book talk about. Okay, so, and to go back to the today he begets me thing, I should have done this earlier, that was my fault. Proverbs 8:22 to verse 30 in the Septuagint, you can cross that with John 1:14 and John 3:16. So here we go. It says, reading from the Aramaic New Testament here, for Yahuwah loved the world in this way, so much that he would give up his son, the only begotten son, or only one, the Aramaic has here, the only begotten son, so that everyone who trusts in him shall not be lost, but he shall have eternal life. A lot of Christians tend to miss that point of shall have. Doesn't mean you get it automatically right away just from believing in his death and resurrection. Okay, it says shall have eternal life. Okay, then you got John chapter 1 verse 14, which also says he is the only begotten of the Father. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his esteem, the esteem of the only begotten of the Father, full of mercy and truth. So in Proverbs 8, when it says he begets me, obviously that's Yahusha, because he's the only begotten of the Father. So it can be only one person that it's talking about. Okay. Let's see here. We did Genesis 49:11 earlier. Genesis 22:2 and 12. I'm going to read from the Septuagint here. Just try to speed it up a little bit. I know we've been on for a while here. Genesis 22:12 says, in the Septuagint it says, and I'll start at verse 2 here. It says, and he said, take your son, the beloved one. Now, what's interesting to me is in that pseudepigraphal, apocryphal book of the Ascension of Isaiah, Yahusha is called the beloved. Now, Isaac in the Septuagint is called the beloved one of Abraham, which is kind of interesting to me. It's like a little foreshadowing. So, whom you have loved, Isaac, and go into the high land and offer him there for a whole burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell you of. What I find even more interesting here is when you get to verse 11, it says, and the angel of Yahuwah called him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, behold, I am here. Or how Tobias mentioned to us in the past that this is more of a hearkening to obey, a hearkening to, your humble servant, here I am. And he said, lay not your hand upon the child, neither do anything to him. For now I know that you fear Alua, or Elohim. And for my sake, for whose sake? The angel of Yahuwah's sake, you have not spared your beloved son. Interesting. So right there, you have Genesis 22:2 and also verse 12 there. The beloved is a title for Isaac, which is also a title for Yahusha in the ascension of Isaiah. Okay. Then we have Malachi 3:11 with Genesis 16:14. Malachi 3:11, which mentions this angel of the covenant. Okay, it says, okay, maybe it's 3:1. Might be 3:1. Yep, my bad. Malachi chapter 3, verse 1. Behold, I send forth my messenger, and he shall survey the way before me, and Yahuwah, whom you seek, shall suddenly come into his temple, even the angel of the covenant, whom you take pleasure in. Behold, he is coming, says Yahuwah Almighty. What's interesting, it says, whom you take pleasure in. What does Yahuwah say about Yahusha when he got immersed? He says, this is my son, whom I take delight in, or whom I'm well pleased, in whom I'm well pleased. So it's very interesting to me. There's a little connection there. In Malachi 3:1 of the Septuagint. Then if you go to Genesis 16:14 of the Aramaic Targums, which the Targums are pretty much a manuscript that predates our modern, Old Testaments we have in our Bibles that pretty much were, the Old Testament in our Bibles are pretty much the authoritative Old Testament of Judaism, if you look it up on Wikipedia. So this manuscript predates it, and I gotta remember which Targum it's in. Some of the Targums are fragmented. Let's see here. I think it's
Doug, are the Targums actual translations or are they commentaries? I thought they were kind of like not like paraphrases.
Yeah, they claim that the Targums were paraphrases of the original Paleo-Hebrew, but I think it's more or less it was Aramaic actual manuscript that was translated from an earlier Paleo-Hebrew text, kind of like how the Greek Septuagint was a translation of the earlier Paleo-Hebrew, but they try to say it's paraphrased because there's more info in there than in the Masoretic text, and I think more or less it's based on opinion. They want to say it's a paraphrase because especially since Yahusha's mentioned a lot more. So they don't want people to think, oh, the word of Yahuwah, this person who is called the word of Yahuwah is all over Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, and I think more or less it's a Jewish tradition to interpret them as paraphrases instead of word-for-word manuscripts. Because right here it says in Genesis 16:14, wherefore she called the well, basically the well that the angel of Yahuwah, the angel of the covenant, appeared to her. So this is Hagar speaking here in Genesis 16:14. Wherefore she called the well at which the living and eternal one was revealed. And behold, it is situate between Rechem and Kalutza. And so then if you go back to here, it says, and she gave thanks before Yahuwah, whose word spoke to her. So in the Targums, the angel of the covenant, or the angel of Yahuwah, in one of the Targums is actually called the word of Yahuwah. So this is why I believe the angel of Yahuwah that appeared in the fiery bush, And you see in other places the one that wrestled with Jacob, that was Yahusha, pre-incarnate. And so the word of Yahuwah, according to the Targum of Jonathan, is the angel of the covenant. So here we go. We got Isaiah 63, verse 1, we're up to now, with Revelations 19, 13, and 15. So I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. We're almost done, but I'm going to try to go a little quicker. All right, so Isaiah 63, verse 1 in the Septuagint says, "Who is this that comes from Edom, with red garments from Bozor, thus fair in his apparel, and mighty with mighty strength? I speak of righteousness and saving right ruling." Like, you know the old Christian song, "He's mighty to save"? You know, that's probably where they get it from. It's Isaiah 63, 1. Mighty with strength. My all is mighty to save, you know, that old song. So that's, I believe it's definitely talking about Yahusha being dripped in red apparel, and Revelations 19, 13, and 15 proves that. It says, see here, he is dripped in blood. Here we go. Verse 13 here. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahuwah. So he has a vesture dipped in blood, you know, from treading out the winepress. Okay, so the winepress of Yahuwah's wrath. And we did Genesis 49 earlier. We did Genesis 3:15 earlier. Okay, so we're almost at the bottom here. Okay, so now we got Ezekiel 34:23. I want to see about that, if there's anything there with that. Yeah, let's see here. We still got the ones from Enoch to do also. Ezekiel 34:23. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. Now, this is where you have the non-Messianic Israelites taking this verse completely out of context and saying that David's going to be, you know, the true Messiah, David's coming back and all that, you know, not understanding that David is being used as a type of foreshadowing. Since David's already dead at the time of Ezekiel, obviously, it's being used as a metaphor for the Messiah. It's not actually talking about David as the Messiah. So a lot of people take that out of context. So it's talking about that Yahusha, a type of David, Yahusha the Messiah, would be basically the shepherd over Yasharal, which we know he is our shepherd. Okay, so Jeremiah 30 verse 9 is another place talks about this. Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 9. And but they shall serve Yahuwah their Elohim and David their king, whom I will raise unto them. Okay? So think about it. Future tense, he's saying of this person that he's calling David, I shall raise him unto them. So it's completely future context. And David's been dead for a while now. I mean, Jeremiah's way after the time of the first and second kings, mind you. Okay? So let's keep everything in context here. It can't be talking about David. So now if you go to John chapter 10, verse 11, it makes sense. Okay, who the David he's actually talking about. Who is this David? Okay. John chapter 10, verse 11. I am the tube shepherd. The tube shepherd gives his life for the sheep. Okay, so you have him, and it even gets really stronger in my opinion. Those of me that, in my opinion, believe in the oneness of the Father and Son. In the Aramaic, it doesn't just say the tube shepherd. I am the living Elohim, the tube shepherd. The tube shepherd lays down his life for his flock. So that's a little interesting anecdote I have there, just for people to look up for themselves.
So Doug,
yep.
when Yahusha says, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except Elohim," is he basically saying, "I am Elohim"? Because he does call himself the Good Shepherd. He says that he is
I
good.
think I agree with you, sis, in my opinion, on that context, because a lot of people will use that and will actually use that for the counter argument against me, but I'll be like, well, Yahusha actually allowed him, he actually called himself good. So to say that he was saying that he's not good, I think he's actually talking about in his human form, because he took on flesh. He became part human. So he was a celestial being that became human. So in his human form, yes, he still was tempted with sin like we are. So in a way, he is part human. So for him to say that, to me, is not a contradiction of that. I think people are taking that to extreme literal with that verse that you mentioned about no one's, why do you call me good and all that? Because there are times where he actually calls himself good. So that's just my opinion anyway. But Zechariah 13:7, I found this the other day. This is another place in the book of Zechariah where it shows the Messiah would be pierced in his hands. And this here, it's actually talking about that he received those wounds in the house of his friends, which I find very interesting. It says, Zechariah 13:7, awake, O sword, against my shepherd. This is Yahuwah speaking. So against his shepherd, against the man that is my fellow, says Yahuwah of armies. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. I will turn my hand upon the little ones. Now remember that Yahusha even mentioned to his disciples, once he dies, they're going to scatter from him. They're going to desert him. So this is
breaking up, brother.
Oh, I am? What's going on here? Maybe someone's unmuted in the background and it's messing up. Either that or they're... Oh, okay. My bad about that. Yeah, Ethernet got kicked out.
Can you reread that? Because you were broken up.
Yeah, no problem. I can reread that. Okay, that was Zechariah 13, and actually I forgot verse 6 anyway. So, and one shall say unto him, what are these wounds in your hands? And then he shall say, those which I was wounded in the house of my friends.
Bad connection, mijo. Bad connection.
I think it's on your side, sis, because no one else is...
Yeah, he's clear on mine, so it must be yours, Sadie.
Yeah, let me see here.
Yeah, he's clear on mine too.
So Zechariah 13:6 is the wounds in...
You know why? Because we're all logging on to the internet. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll hear it on the recording.
Yep, no problem. All right, so Zechariah 13:6 is the wounds in his hand. Verse 7 is when he gets deserted, and I'll read verse 7 again. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man that is my fellow, says Yahuwah of armies. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. I will turn my hand upon the little ones. What's interesting in verse 6, if you look at the Septuagint version of verse 6, it doesn't just say his friends. It says, I was wounded in my beloved house. It's kind of interesting because, where 2 or 3 are gathered, Yahusha is in the midst, and Judas betrayed him to get impaled. So it's kind of interesting to me. So I want to go now to the New Testament version of that being fulfilled is in, where are we here? Matthew 26:31. All right, so Matthew 26:31. Matthew 26:31. See here. So we got this here. And Yahusha said to them, all of you shall stumble in me this night, for it has been written, I shall strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered. Yep, Zechariah 13:7. Yep, so, and then we got Psalms 41 verse 9, which I forgot in the part 1 when I was doing the Apocalypse of Abraham, talking about Yahusha being betrayed and Azazel kissing him on the cheek and how that's fulfilled with Judas. So we're going to go to that the Messiah was foretold he would be betrayed. Psalms, I think it's Psalms 41 verse 9. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure about that. So Psalms 41 verse 9, it's also foretold in. Even my own friend, or for even the man of my peace, wow, in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, lifted up his heel against me. That's a very important thing for the Masoretic text to leave out there. He put his heel against me. Genesis 3:15, 3:16. Okay, so the heel of the serpent, Judas, you know. Or no. Yeah, his heel against me. So yeah, the heel of the serpent, or the serpent would bruise Yahusha's heel. So it's very similar. It's very similar to even the first prophecy of the scriptures. Matthew 26:52. Or actually, let's go in order here. I'll go to Matthew 26:49 and 52. Matthew 26:49, 52. And going up to Yahusha, he said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. And Yahusha said to him, "Friend, why have you come?" Then they came and laid hands on Yahusha and seized him. And look, one of those with Yahusha put out his hand and drew his sword. Striking the servant of the high priest, he cut off his ear. Then Yahusha said to him, "Return your sword to its place. For all who take the sword shall die by the sword." You know, live by the sword shall die by the sword. Okay, so that was Matthew 26.
Hey, brother, real quick, when you say that, so when they say live by the sword, die by the sword, is that like our gun rights? We live by the gun, we die by
Nah.
Okay.
Live by the sword, die by the sword is an idiom Yahusha was trying to explain to Kapha, to Peter, that, you know, this is not the time. This, like prophecy is being fulfilled. Like, it's not the time to be, you know, going to war. Basically, he's trying to say, if you live by the sword and you try to take a vengeance out for your own sake, you're gonna die by that same aspect. Peter was selfishly trying to, you know, save Yahusha from dying, and he struck the Roman soldier for no reason. The Roman soldier is just doing his job, and he's striking the guy, or whoever was taking Yahusha, you know, bounding Yahusha. And Yahusha is saying, in that instance, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Like, taking action in that way, you're in danger of dying because of that. You know, basically, you know, if you live by the sword, you live by, you know, going out on your own and trying to kill someone, you could be killed in that same nature. And a lot of musical artists like Lil Wayne make songs making fun of that aspect. You know, and all these satanic artists make fun of that idiom that Yahusha used, you know. And basically Yahusha is talking about persecution. He's not saying you don't ever use your sword, you don't ever use a weapon to protect yourself. It's the fact that Peter, what the reason he was doing it, basically what the reason behind it he was doing it was selfish. It was all about, you know, avenging Yahusha for his own self, you know. Yeah. Luke 22:36. Yeah, so we got to be careful. Tobiah actually put in the chat here. Luke 22:36 is the context, because so it's not wrong to defend yourself. It's just that in that aspect, what Kapha was doing by striking the guy's ear was not fulfilling Yahuwah's will in any way, shape, or form. He was taking vengeance on his own account, on Kapha's own account for Yahusha. And Yahusha's like, if you live by that, you're going to die by that. Basically telling him it's not the time, man. This is not the Father's will for you to try to stop me. And then he later on in that, I believe in in that same account of Mark or Luke, he talks about that he says, if I really wanted, I could have a whole legion of my Father's angels protect me right now.
Yes.
If I really wanted to. Like, so ultimately it was the Father's will for him to be taken away. That's why he says live by the sword, die by the sword. He's not saying like, oh, you can't defend yourself. I know the Christian interpretation of that is like, you got to let everyone do whatever they want to you. If someone steals from you, give them your purse also. You know, they take stuff out of context. You know, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about persecution when Yahusha mentions all that stuff. Like someone strikes you, give them the other cheek, turn the other cheek and all that. That in context, that's talking about being persecuted for righteousness' sake and all that. So let me see. So we got Luke 22, which is the other time. This is the other account you can find Yahusha being betrayed and kissed on the cheek, which the Ascension of Isaiah actually says Satan himself did it, kissed him on the cheek. And those around him, seeing what was about to take place, said to him, Master, shall we strike with the sword? Okay, no, this is about, asking him. So this is interesting. The account of Luke is that they're asking him to strike with the sword before it happens. That's interesting. So it's kind of interesting. Different points of view and all that with the sword accounts. Let's see here. So now we're going to get to the really, really fun parts, the last two parts of this study. The cloud rider of Daniel 7, and in the book of Enoch, the Son of Man, which that phrase is really hard to find in our Bibles in the Old Testament. It's very hard to find as referring to the Messiah, the promised Messiah, as the Son of Man. It's a phrase that's used a lot, though, in the book of Enoch and once in Daniel. So we're going to go first to Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. And it says, the Son of Man is given dominion. That's the header they have on eSword here. I beheld in the night vision, and lo, one coming with the clouds of heaven, as the Son of Man. And he came unto the Ancient of Days and was brought near him. So you have Yahusha, the Son of Man, coming to the Ancient of Days, Yahuwah. And so in that instance, they're completely separate. So it's kind of interesting. So now what I want to show you guys here is that this Ancient of Days is used somewhat in the book of Enoch also, but instead of Ancient of Days, it's Head of Days. So it's very similar, a very similar title for Yahuwah, and talks about the Son of Man coming to him. All right, so I think we're going to first start with chapter 69 of Enoch. So here we go here. Chapter 69, actually, we'll start with chapter 46, 2-3, because that's when you see it first. Let's see here. Let me try to fast forward this. 46, 2-3. Okay, here we go. Let's put this on the shared screen here. We're almost done. And there I saw one who had a head of days. The head of days, the Ancient of Days. And his head was white like wool, and with him was another being, another person, whose face had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of mercy. Remember John chapter 1:14, full of mercy and truth. And like one of the Kadash messengers. And I asked the messenger who went with me and showed me all the hidden matters concerning Ben Ha-Adam, the Son of Man, who he was, and where he was, and why he went with the head of days. And he answered and said unto me, this is the Son of Man, who has righteousness, and with whom dwelt righteousness, and who revealed all the treasures of that which is hidden. Because Yahuwah of armies has chosen him, and whose lot has preeminence before Yahuwah of armies in uprightness forever. Okay, so he has righteousness forever, who reveals all wisdom. of which is hidden, because Yahuwah of armies has chosen him, whose lot has been preeminence. Okay, and then it goes on to verse 4, and the Son of Man, whom you have seen, shall raise up the kings and the mighty from their thrones, and shall loosen the kidneys of the strong and break the teeth of the sinners. Yep. So again, we're already seeing a connection here in a BC literature Apocrypha. Talk about this Son of Man being the rulers of the kings of earth, and you can actually find that in the New Testament. I don't have that offhand, but there is I think it might be in Paul's letters. He says, Yahusha Messiah, the ruler of the kings of the earth. So, let me see. Let me go back to the document here. Now we're going to go from 46:2-3. We're going to go to chapter 69, verses 26 to 29 here. And let's see here. Let me get back to, I got so many windows open. That's part of the problem. Here we go. There we go. All right, so we're going to go to chapter 69 now. We're going to scroll all the way down. Here we go. Verses 26 to 29. And anyone interested, I have a link to this PDF version of the Book of Enoch, Hallelujah Scriptures version. It's completely free. So let me know if you want to download that to print out. Here we go. Verse 26 to 29. And there was great joy amongst them, and they barak and esteemed the exalted because the name of the son of Adam had been revealed unto them. Proverbs 30, verse 4, anyone? And he sat on the throne of his esteem, and the sum of judgment was given unto the son of Adam. And he caused the sinners to pass away and be destroyed from off the face of the earth. And those who have led the world astray, with chains shall they be bound, and in their assemblage place of destruction shall they be imprisoned. All their works vanish from the face of the earth. And from here on there shall be none corruptible but the Son. For the Son of Adam has appeared and has seated himself on the throne of his esteem, and on all evil shall pass away before his face. And the word, and the word of the Son of Adam shall go forth and be strong before Yahuwah of armies. This is the third parable of Enoch. Interesting. Enoch spoke in parables like Yahusha. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, here we go. Now we're getting to the last part of this study. Oh, no, my bad. Let me not get ahead of yourself, Doug. You still got one cross-reference there. My bad, guys. Enoch 71, verse 14. We still got that from Enoch. So we got one more from Enoch here. It says here, okay, here we go. And these Berikof or Baruch, which went forth out of the mouth, were well-pleasing before the head of days, and that the head of days came with Michael and Gabriel, Raphael and Phanuel, thousands and 10,000s of messengers. Jude talks about that. Without number. And he came to me and greeted me with his voice and said unto me, This is the Son of Man, Ha ben Adam, who is born unto righteousness, and righteousness abides over him, and the righteousness of the head of days does not forsake him. And he said unto me, He proclaims unto you peace in the name of the world to come, for from here has proceeded peace since the creation of the world, and so shall it be unto you forever and forever and ever. And okay, let me see if there's any. Oh, there's one more here in verse 17. So there shall be the length of days with the Son of Man, and the righteous shall have peace, and the upright in the name of Yahuwah of armies forever and ever. So you get the point. The Son of Man, actually, that phrase, the Son of Man, actually originates from the Book of Enoch. As far as being a title for the Messiah, for Yahusha, it originated from Enoch. So most likely, every time Yahusha says the Son of Man shall suffer these things, the Son of Man this, the Son of Man that, referring to himself in the third person, he probably took it from the Book of Enoch, most likely, because I find it very unlikely he was taking it from Daniel, which Daniel only mentions that title once in the whole book of Daniel. So, but anyway. Jeremiah 23:5. We're going to start off with the righteous branch. Yahusha, the promised Messiah, is known as the righteous branch. That stems from David. Or the branch of David that stems from Jesse, I should say. Jeremiah 23:5. Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, when I will raise up to David a righteous branch. And a king shall reign and understand and shall execute right ruling and righteousness on the earth. So clearly here is showing that David cannot be the Messiah. Because he's talking about that the righteous branch that he raises up to David, meaning that comes forth from David, is actually the king. So just wanted to point that out. Then we also have Zechariah 6:11-12. What's interesting is the Targum of Zechariah, which I don't have a physical version of, but according to BibleHub.com, you can look this up for yourself. BibleHub.com quoted that the Targum of Zechariah says that the branch. Let me go to this and show you what I mean by what is the difference here. Instead of his name is the branch, it would be his name is Messiah. According to BibleHub.com, there's one main difference here in verse 12. It says, Thus you shall say to him, thus says Yahuwah Almighty, behold the man whose name is the branch. See how the Septuagint says, whose name is the branch? According to BibleHub.com, the Targum version says, whose name is Messiah. So it makes it very specific. And to me, it's very important to know that because Zechariah 6:11-12 is foreshadowing Yahusha by another Yahusha, son of Jehozadak, who is the son of a high priest. And then also you have Yahusha, son of Nun, who was Masha's successor, which I believe he also foreshadowed Yahusha when it talks about Masha wrote concerning me, a prophet like unto you I shall raise among your brothers. And if anyone knows of that cross reference, I think it's in Deuteronomy. Masha mentions it. And so the foreshadowing was that prophet that, like unto Moses at that point in time, partially was fulfilled as Yahusha, son of Nun, but then eventually, it would be Yahusha, Messiah. So that's all I have for today. Anything my brothers and sisters would like to add? That's all the scriptures I have to share for today.
Hallelujah. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. I have a quick question, Doug, going back to the Melchizedek question. So I found in Jasher chapter 16 is where that same event is talked about, and it names that king as Shem. It says the same was Shem. So my question to you is, I don't know what your thoughts are on the book of Jasher, if you think it's authentic or not. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
Parts of Jasher I like that seem to go along with the 66 books. In my opinion, that is a direct contradiction with Yahusha's own
I lost
word.
you. In your opinion, say again, in your opinion?
Oh, in my opinion, the book of Jasher, for it to say that it was Shem, I would need to see a second witness to go with Jasher over what I believe that Yahusha himself was saying about meeting Abraham and all that in John chapter 8. So to me, I would trust John over Jasher. I would trust the fact that the only event I could see that Yahusha would have met Abraham physically face to face would have been the bread and the wine given to Abraham by Melchizedek, plus the fact David was promised to be the Melchizedek priest, and he never became the Melchizedek priest. So a lot of times where you see in the book of Psalms, it says, Yahuwah promises it to David. It's not really promising it to David. It's to the one that will come in his lineage, if that makes any sense. So I believe Yahuwah himself was promising that his son would be the Melchizedek priest. And so I think, in my opinion, Jasher contradicts the book of Psalms in that aspect and contradicts Hebrews 7 that Paul wrote and just the original event of Genesis 14. I would need to see a second witness of an extra biblical account, just to, or somewhere in a version of the Torah that would attest to that. Like if that's the case, then it should be in the Targums, because the Targums sometimes have the same added information that Jasher or Jubilees has. So I'll look into that. But as far as right now, I still stand with my opinion that he was Melchizedek, king of Salem. It makes sense to me. Salem is the suffix of Jerusalem. It makes sense to me. Yahusha ultimately is the King of Kings, Master of Masters. So to me, it makes more sense than Shem, because I would have to see, like, Shem. I don't think I've ever seen any other extra biblical text say that Shem had a priestly order like that. Like he was a priest of the Most High. I would have to, find a second witness for that. So.
Okay, and so then along with that, the issue of Yahusha appearing to Abraham, you don't think that was Yahusha when the 3 messengers came and talked to him at his tent right before Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed? You don't think that third one that stayed behind was Yahusha?
Well, technically, I believe that it was Yahusha and the Father as one person, and then the other 2 were the angels.
Right.
But that could have been referring to him also, but at the same time, I don't think Abraham knew that it was Yahusha, because at the same time that person, the one of the 3, is claiming to be the Father, like speaking like, it seems like it's more of like a Yahuwah thing there, because he even addresses him as Yahuwah. And Abraham I don't think he actually knew the Son until he got the bread and the wine, in my opinion.
So you think the Father appeared to Abraham in that particular?
It's possible, because sometimes the Father appears as himself to certain people where he doesn't use Yahusha as his mouthpiece. Sometimes that happens. So I've seen places where it is Yahusha, because it will say the Malach, the angel of Yahuwah, and that makes it pretty clear that it's Yahusha in the burning bush. But then there's places where it just says Yahuwah appeared to him, and where it kind of gives a more idea that it's the Father aspect of them that he's actually talking to. So I don't know. That's kind of my opinion. I think it makes sense though with the bread and the wine, because that's what Yahusha that's what he instituted in the Last Supper. So to me, it makes the most sense that he would be Melchizedek, king of Salem. But I'm open to searching for it, looking into other stuff. But yeah, I actually believe it was more of the Father that was of the 3 people. And as far as like who Abraham talked to, like I believe they're the same person, but I believe it was more of Yahuwah that Abraham actually saw taking on a human form, and Yahuwah was talking to him, and you had the 2 other angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah. And they were the ones that rescued Lot. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know about the whole Shem thing, but that's kind of interesting. But
all right, thank you. And do you have links to where you get the targums, the translations?
Yeah, there's let me open this up here. It's called this guy, J.W. Etheridge. He's not the same translator, but it's pretty much the same thing. I haven't seen main differences from the J.W. Etheridge guy and the Tove Rose guy that your mom has physical versions of. It's not that much of a difference, really. I've seen it's almost like identical with the 2 English.
Are you calling her my daughter?
Yeah, I'm talking about you, Sadie. Yeah.
She's like my daughter. Yes, that's right. I got an extra copy here, Sandra, if you want to take it off my hands.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I thought I was talking to Marie. I'm sorry. My bad.
Oh, physical. A physical
Oh, no
copy.
worries.
Yeah, I got a physical copies.
Let's see
Somehow
here.
I got a set of 2.
Targum. The website is called targum.info, and this guy, the same guy who did an English translation of the Syriac Peshitta, not to be confused with the Peshitta Aramaic, but the Syriac New Testament was done by the same guy. and he did an English translation of it. His name is James Wesley Etheridge, and he does like a lot of Syriac and Aramaic stuff. So he translated it. He did not create the Targums, obviously, because the Targums, at latest, they say the Targums they were first compiled in like the late date is like early first century AD, and the Jerusalem one, which has so much fragments in it, it has barely any in it, is rumored to be from the time of Daniel in Babylon. And so you got all three here. You got the Targum Jonathan, which I was reading from. Targum Onkelos is one that seems to be what they would consider, the word for word one. It's very similar to the Masoretic text, but it still has better stuff in it. And what I like about these Targums is they indicate the Tetragrammaton should be there a lot more than what we have in our Old Testaments. Like the Masoretic text in the Hebrew will say Elohim this, Elohim that, Eloah that, and the Targums actually show that in the English translations they have the Lord all through the first chapter of Genesis. The Lord this, the Lord that. So that's indicating, I believe that's indicating that YHUH should be there all these times. Yeah, for the whole chapter of the first chapter of Genesis, you barely even have the English God even mentioned until you get to about like halfway through the chapter. So, yeah, I kind of like it. There's a lot of added information. I believe they've been suppressed from the public because they show Yahusha in Genesis. That's my opinion. I believe the reason they've been suppressed so much, and what's funny is that the synagogues actually read this stuff, but I guess they don't let the congregation read it. There's something in the Talmud that mentions that as you're reading the Masoretic text twice, you should read the Targum once. So it's
funny, brother,
yeah.
because in the Catholics, they didn't really push the fact for us to read the word. The priests read the word.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they would only give you a little portion of it, and then sort of you're more up and down worshiping Mary and God and all that, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They were really concentrating on what we should have been doing, reading the word, because they do only allow the priest to read just a couple scriptures, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Well, thank you, Facebook, for joining us. Thank you for all our viewers and listeners that will be seeing our study later on YouTube. This is it for today. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sabbath. Shalom, brothers and sisters.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.